c'est toujours une joie pour moi vous voir. Merci. Voir arriver les amis de Europe Cinéma. Tu me dis quand tu veux. Ou sinon je fais directement, je fais en français et en italien.
Comme vous voulez.
Oui, c'est plus simple. O lo faccio direttamente. C'est un peu absurde di me tradurre in italiano. Parlo direttamente in italiano. Oui. Per me è un vero piacere sapere che siete qui, sapere che degli esercenti europei vengono a Bologna per il cinema ritrovato. Questi 2 ultimi anni
over the last 2
ci
years,
siete molto mancati.
we have missed you a lot.
Come se il cinema ritrovato fosse zoppo.
So Cinema Ritrovato was no
Il cinema
longer
ritrovato è la
what
festa
it
degli
was
archivi,
before.
la festa
And
del passato del cinema,
you know,
ma anche del suo presente,
the past
di
of
come
the
il
movies,
cinema del passato
the end of
può
movies,
parlarci
the
del
past,
presente, del
the past
futuro,
can
come
tell
può
us a
parlare
lot
al
about
pubblico, agli spettatori,
the future,
come
about the present.
film anche
So,
molto antichi.
Also very old
Quest'anno in
movies.
Piazza Maggiore faremo vedere
In
2
Piazza
film che hanno
Maggiore
esattamente
we
100
will
anni.
show you
Police Wise
pictures that are 180 years old,
del 1922.
films from 1922.
Li ammirerà come opere contemporanee.
So these are contemporary movies. Cinema Ritrovato is also a festival,
Il cinema
and
sono le sale cinematografiche.
cinemas are theaters. So cinema is theaters. It means to see movies together, meeting new people that can barely see each other in the dark. Piazza Maggiore is the best cinema in the world. Let me tell you this. There are other wonderful cinemas in the world, but we like to think that this magic place was built some centuries ago, thinking that one day we would have had a silver screen, and this shows yesterday's evening is evidence of this. Last year, last week, the great dictator was streamed, and it was incredible to see 6,000 people, young people that were enjoying this movie. It was the first time for them, and they were giving rounds of applause during the movie, during the streaming. So Cinema Ritrovato is actually a word that means many things. 36 years ago, when we chose this label, these words, we really liked it. It means many different things. However, we couldn't forecast that this year it would have meant something else. So to recover, to find again the pleasure to see movies together, to be together in theaters. So Cinema Ritrovato means this, because we are struggling, we are fighting at the moment. So over the next few months will be very important. The future of movies provides for, streaming movies on small screens, or maybe they should be in our brain. I don't know what to say. So this is what Thomas Alva Edison actually said, or Lumiere, or instead Wright, thinking that cinema is art, a craft that can be shared, can be seen. Today, this fight is in progress. We are fighting. In Italy, compared to 2019, we actually lost 60% of our audience. Many theaters are running the risk of closing. However, what's happening these days actually is evidence of the fact that we can win over this. We can win this battle. Theaters have a huge value. They are a key instrument to our culture, not only for the present but also for the future. And that's why I believe that, I really missed you a lot over the last 2 years, because each of you plays a key role. You are yourself fighting, struggling in your country, in your city, in your neighborhood, and you are trying and defending what the best thing human beings have created. So theaters, the idea of a folk art, a folk craft, something that is courageous, something that is modern, something that can actually show the present, the past and the future, a craft for everyone that we have to defend with all our power. Thank you very much. Thank you. Grazie per essere qui, grazie. Dopo questa introduzione, adesso cominciamo questa prima giornata che è dedicata alle strategie che svilupperemo per attirare il pubblico. Ci saranno 4 sessioni, iniziamo con la prima, quindi vediamo alcuni esempi di quello che stiamo facendo e vedremo alcuni casi di studio. Ok, allora. Ok, allora vediamo un po'. Va bene, vedete tutti? Vedete? Ok, allora. Con il cinema on my mind, tutto quello che stiamo facendo è meraviglioso. Chi siamo noi? Siamo istituzioni che sono state fondate, sono finanziate. Siamo in un piccolo paese con una popolazione esigua. Altri cinema a Lubiana, ci sono altri cinema nella città, ci sono 5 schermi, poi ci sono i multiplex, ci sono 2 multiplex nel nostro paese. Alcuni numeri nel 2019. Il 2019 è stato l'anno migliore per il cinema, per il nostro cinema, per l'Europa in generale. Ecco, vedete alcune cifre, le potete leggere da soli e appunto vediamo alcune percentuali interessanti qua che riguardano le associazioni, le attività che noi svolgiamo. Vediamo appunto la nostra programmazione. Noi abbiamo una programmazione indipendente, naturalmente. Vediamo che purtroppo ci sono stati anche dei cali e appunto dal 2022, dall'inizio del 2022 abbiamo visto un calo del
until April, so we are very pleased with these results. Our program consists of three major pillars. One is, of course, a regular film program, which can be done because we have such a really close relationship with our distributors, and we wouldn't be able to do it without them. Another one is, of course, young audiences with film education. They represent 30% of all our activities and also all our admissions and revenues. And then we have festivals, which we co-host or host or co-produce 11 to 13 each year. But then, of course, we are more than cinema. We have open air on 3 locations every year, special events like premieres, talks, stuff like that. Conferences, seminars, exhibitions, because we use literally every square centimeters of our cinema we put to good use. We have special projects like we celebrate every possible occasion of our cinema when it has 90 years, when it has 95 years. Next year it's going to be 100 years. It's going to be whole year of celebration of cinema. And then we have a lot of collaborations like Cinemini with I Institute and other institutions from Europe. And for instance, Film in Hospitals, which is like a project with a platform for children so that when they're during the hospital stays, they can watch film. But I have to stress that all our events are always related, cinema or film related. So we don't have any operas, VRs, or anything else because we don't have to. We have only 2 halls, so we are, let's say, pressed for space, not pressed for content. Just a very quick look on the pandemic, how it affected us. It was a period when we were able to test different, let's say, strategies, but we decided very early on, almost immediately, that we will offer no reduction and no free content. And we did it deliberately because we wanted to stress that cinema film content is valuable. It is art. It is art. It is a very expensive, let's say, expensive to prepare, make, and distribute film. So it's worth paying for because a lot of people were putting their everything into it. Most important things were that we maintained our communication with audience and that we used only meaningful online content. So we didn't litter their time because it was a period where everybody was bombarding them with information, with pleas for help and stuff, with everything. So it was really stressful time. We didn't want to add to that. And then we, of course, had time to experiment also with promotional strategies, digital marketing, and social media. The most important thing for us really was that we kept the team together because if that would be lost, we wouldn't be able to do anything after the corona. So what were our lessons? We came to realize and accept it that digital and physical world will forever coexist. So as a cinema, we really wanted to make sure that we will be in charge of how this, that we will be cooperating in this future, and make sure that the future will look like we wanted it to look, and not just adapt to whatever is going on in the world. And we also realized that, unfortunately, the new reality meant also that we did a much more work for fewer people. And just final line that the service that we are providing in Kinodvor is actually the experience of watching the film in Kinodvor, not individual film or content itself. So our goals, of course, situations like this offer new opportunities. But really, 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 the most important thing is that anything that you come up with doesn't endanger cinema in the long run, your cinema or cinema in general. And then, of course, always bearing in mind that audience visitors are actually our allies, our friends, our best ambassadors. Things that they are talking about you do much, much more than any digital marketing campaign, advertising campaign could do for you. So for every, the final goal is we have to preserve the magic of cinema, because nothing can replace it. Our key points, so if I would just have to condense everything in 4 points, is that program diversity brings diverse audiences. Because we had such a concept of our content before pandemic, it turned out that it was a solid base, and we were able to come back from pandemic much better and quicker. Then everything we are doing, we are trying to strengthen the cinema going habits. This has to be like people have to have this in their everyday life, this awareness that I'm going to the cinema because I just want to be there. This is something that I will not miss. Okay, I will not go to the massage, or I don't know, I will skip fitness, which is the easier to do, and I'll go to the cinema. So, point 3, cinema is an inclusive cultural and social space. And with it, we are forming a cinema community. If you have something like cinema community around and with your cinema, this is much easier because your cinema becomes it's their space, and they're talking about it as my cinema. It's like becomes their, and they feel, this ownership, this they feel responsible for it. And of course, you can do all of those 3 only if you know your audience. This is really very, very important. So when we are thinking about audience strategies now, we really have to think much broader. It's such a bigger picture now. And I just gathered some food for thought here. For instance, after initial panic, I'm sure you had it in your countries as well, that cinema is dead, yet again. Producers, filmmakers, distributors, they all became aware how important is cinema for life of individual film, point 1. Another thing, let's consider this, that quality TV, streaming program, and series productions actually develop the audience for cinema because they are, let's say, they want better quality. They watch those series, it's like top-notch, and so they expect the best in cinema as well. So they are actually developing our audiences as well. Consider, is it possible that this might be true and it might work for us? And of course, you were talking about, competition and commercial cinema and stuff like that. But listen, as long as there is a cinema, there will be cinema audience. And eventually, only 5 minutes left. Yes, thank you. So, might worth thinking about it. And then be aware that time is a new currency. We are not competing only with other cinemas, with streaming. We're competing with other free time activities. And not only that, we are competing with picking children from school. We are competing with Pilates. We are competing with mushroom picking and stuff like that, with concerts. So time is our new currency, and we have to make it worthwhile to people when they come to cinema, that, they feel that they didn't waste their time and money. So how to make sure that cinema is part of people's life, that there is something that they are not willing to give up for any other activity. This is really important. And of course, last but not least, the current situation with pandemic, another possible health crisis, not to mention wars, not to mention global climate changes or crisis and everything that's going on. In my opinion, people will need culture and arts more than ever before. It's not a time to say, listen, we can't compete with these really horrible times we're living in. No, people will need us to remain sane and survive, like, to keep their humanity. I don't know if we have time for three practical solutions that we had. Just 3 examples of what we did in Kinodvor to turn our, let's say, disadvantages to advantage. We have a very, very tiny hall with 21 seats, and we made it Kino on demand. So people can choose their time, film, company, and have something like added value to it, like something very special. They can invite friends, family members, whatever. It's their time, their space, and they can even give it as a birthday present. We prepared some online content for a young audience program, which can be used when cinema is closed or when it's open. But the main point was that it was content that promoted physical activity. So children were not glued to the screen, but they had tasks, they had to do something related to the cinema. All of these things we have on our website, so you can see the films that they produced, like how to do animation at home from objects and stuff like that. And then we introduced special programs. For instance, a little cycle of film noir presented here. We offered more variety, genre, niches, so-called old films, because we never say for any film that it's old. Film is film. This is something that promotes cinema culture, and building this cinema-going habits stronger. Of course, talking about films, there's nothing better and more addictive than talking about films with other people. It's like a drug. And then, of course, it's proved to be very good intergenerational content, because we thought we're going to get older people who would just want to see those films again on the big screen. No, we had a mostly young audience, mostly young. And those films were discovery for them. It was like, ooh, I didn't know people were able to make such films. So that was it seems. Did I press the wrong button or something? Yeah. Do you hear me? Yeah. So now we'll just move on, because we are some 15 minutes late. If you don't mind, we will start our first session of the day, which is bringing in next generation. And the first speaker will be Madeleine.
Hi, everybody. So I'm Madeleine Probst. I'm from Watershed in Bristol in the UK. We're essentially a cinema, but also a research centre for kind of innovation around technology and arts. And we're also home to a whole range of different projects, one of which you're seeing on screen here, called RIFE. I've come here over the years and presented a lot of new projects that we started, and often kind of focused on the beginning of something and it being exciting. And I thought it'd be interesting to talk about the end of something, because sometimes we do have to end things, and I think RIFE is a really good example of that. So I'm going to take you back to circa 2014. We were working with our local council on trying to find a solution to what at the time was called digital provision for young people. So they worked with lots of youth centres across the city, but they were looking for something to connect all those projects up, and they came to us and said, well, you know about digital, you can do this. We want a place where all young people are going to come and find out everything that's available in the city. And I have to say we were quite skeptical. The idea of young people going to a website to find out things written by grown-ups didn't quite appeal to us. So instead we decided to work with a company called Latimer, who do some great work with brands, commercial brands. and they're really good at kind of getting young people together and getting them to kind of inform how a brand develops. So they found lots of YouTubers, people that were influential in Bristol, and they kind of got them together. And the result of this kind of lab, it was like 1 week, was the creation of Rife, which was essentially a platform for young people to kind of express themselves, share their opinions. And our city wanted us to solve a lot of things with this project: crime, sexual health, everything. So we kind of tried to find some really interesting angles that were led by young people to talk about these issues in an interesting way, rather than trying to sort of just offer information. And yeah, I mean, you can see here some of the people that were involved in the early days. And I think it's fair to say that the project has been the kind of starting point for thousands of young people in Bristol. We offered paid internships for some people. We offered a platform for people to express themselves, show their work. So, you know, there's a lot of really great things about it. And I think the pinnacle of all of that was this book, 21 Stories, which really kind of was quite zeitgeisty. But the publishing world was kind of realizing that they needed to kind of fund different types of voices. They needed to look at underrepresented voices, and they needed to look at young people. And this book was one of the first one that actually got on the shelves and did that. So it was a collection of essays done under the leadership of Nikesh Shukla, who's now a very successful author. And he was working with Sami, who you can see here on screen. And we also launched an initiative called 24 Under 24, which was an opportunity each year for people to nominate a young person that they thought was inspiring. And that was a really, really great program, which gave people a platform essentially for their work, but also helped businesses discover those young people and their talent. So yeah, that was really fantastic. But you know, 8 years on, the landscape has really changed. There's a lot more provision in Bristol for young people. There's lots of little grassroots companies that have popped up that are doing really, really great work, including some of the Rife alumni that have gone on to set up their own company. A few of our alumni set up a company called Rising Arts, which is now a sort of youth-led organisation that offers support for young artists and also places young artists in a position of strength where they can get commercial contracts and so on. And the funding landscape has changed. I think funders, quite rightly, do want to fund more grassroots organisations, so the money goes straight to the communities and the people. So, you know, we're finding it harder to kind of find our place in that space. And our city council's priorities have shifted a little bit. They're really interested in employment, getting people into employment, and a sort of skills strategy around production. Specifically, they've invested in a huge studio, which is getting lots of really great incoming productions into the city. But what we're seeing is not many young people from the area are getting into that work. So crews are being brought in rather than local people getting employment. So there's a gap there. It's hard to retain talent in Bristol. We're very near to London, and what happens to talent is they often end up moving to London. Yeah, we felt it was perhaps time to kind of, you know, rethink things. Also, the landscape's changed post-COVID, you know, the whole climate change, the economic pressures, and you know, we felt it was time for us to kind of rethink and kind of reconsider how we can best leverage our building, our own strengths as an organisation. We're not a publishing platform. We're not journalists. We don't have a newspaper. The publishing world is very specialized and complex. So we've kind of thought about all those things and thought we should refocus on the things that we're really great at, which is filmmaking, film exhibition, and technology. Here, the picture, I'll just say really briefly about the pictures. The things you might know about Bristol are probably we're the home of Aardman Animation. We're also home of the Bristol Natural History Unit. And we are also the place where we throw statues into the water. And there you can see the plinth, which is all that's left. You know, and that was a really big moment that just happened just outside Watershed. The other thing I should mention is increasingly the British Film Institute and the government, that's probably the only good thing they've done recently, have been thinking about decentralization a lot. So as a result of that, we, Watershed, are not just a cinema, we also are funding other cinemas in the region and festivals, and we're also funding films, short films and feature films. And what we started realizing was that there was a real gap between those funds and people attaining those funds. So there's a lot of talent in our region, but they're perhaps not quite there in terms of forming a team of a producer, a director and a writer. There's a lack of producers. They're all moving to London. There's that problem of talent drain, people leaving Bristol to go and work in London rather than staying where they are. So we really advocated with the British Film Institute for a fund that would look after that early stage, both in terms of exhibition skills and production skills, because we think those two things can work together. You know, a producer of a film can easily be an event producer as well. And we got our way, not quite, we only got £55,000, but to run a project that was regional and that would look after filmmaking and film exhibitions, so develop the talent. I'll briefly mention a couple of the things that we've designed. It was quite hard. We had to launch it during COVID. So we decided to start off with creating an online resource, a series of webinars when people were stuck at home with not much to do. And here you can see Una Chanfi, who's one of the young people that we're working with, interviewing a young producer, Emma Grosset. And I think Una is a good example of someone that's really benefited from this program. She did the hosting, which I think gave her a lot of confidence. She wants to be a presenter, and she's then gone on to do more high-level presenting. She's okay, that's fine. She's now got she did some work for us with BFI Network, so the kind of a higher-level program that we do for feature filmmakers and short filmmakers, and she's got a job now working for a production company, which is fantastic and is what we try to do. We run creative mentoring program. This was very much designed as a result of young people asking us to do this. So very bespoke mentoring. We match them with somebody. As I was saying, there's a gap with writing. You know, I think there's some really good DIY filmmakers, but in terms of story development, and there's a real gap there. So we've done some interventions around that. We are currently looking for short films, regional short films, and that came from both young people but also exhibitors saying actually local shorts are working really well for them at the moment, when there can be that local connection, the talent and the shorts. So we're putting together a package of those shorts, and we'll pay for the talent to go out and go to the different cinemas in the region. And we also run a competition called Depict, which is international 90 seconds. And this year, young people from this program will be selecting the films, so I can relax. I don't have to watch the films anymore, thank God. And yeah, this was like quite a big deal, this event. First IRL in the real world event for young people in a long time. We were very nervous. I actually thought nobody was going to come, and we'd done all this work around it. But yeah, it was absolutely fantastic. We got over 100 young people coming in, not through school, through their own, their own decisions. I think young Maisie helped. I don't know if you recognise her. She's from Game of Thrones. She's originally from Bristol, and she runs this thing called the Frank Film Club. So that was the big attraction at the end of the day. But yeah, there was such a good vibe. And at the end of the day, we literally had to push people out of the door, which was such a nice feeling rather than not having anyone in. So yeah, it made us think, we really need to do more of this. There's an appetite and it feels good. We also work with partners across the region. So it's not just Watershed in Bristol. This is down in Exeter, which is further down the coast. We're giving them some money for commissions of young people's work. And this was a pitching session between 3 different films. And they were making the kind of final decision. And yeah, this was another partnership with the Queer Film Festival. They were invited to kind of design a wraparound activity for a festival that we run. And I think it's happening right now. It's all about George Michael. So something's happening. So, I mean, the main point I wanted to make today is, as exhibitors, we do have to constantly ask ourselves, is it relevant, what we're doing? Should it change? And really, really listening to those things and not just keep doing the same thing over and over again. And sometimes you have to make these really hard decisions. It's not popular for us to stop RIFE. It's, a lot of people want us to just continue with this project because it's good. But we think some really great things are going to come out of it, and we've also got to be realistic about our own resources and our own strengths. And maybe 5 years ago we had Nikesh, who was a brilliant writer. We don't have him anymore. He's so famous. He's going all around the world. And to think, well, now what do we have? What is it that we can offer our community, and particularly the new generation? What can our building do for them? What is it? Just an empty room that they need? Is it desk space? Is it networking? Is it watching films together? Is it watching their own films? So I think to constantly have these conversations with yourself, but also think about the city and the other partners around you. If partners from different communities are starting to kind of emerge and create their own platforms, as the sort of bigger organizations and the bigger institutions, maybe it's time for us to make a bit of space for what they're doing as well. So I think that's the kind of stuff that we're thinking about at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Maddie. We have another presenter.
Hello, I'm Emese from Budapest. I work at the National Film Institute. I've been working there for the last 5 years. The first 3 years at the training department, we organized workshops, master classes for filmmakers. And the last 2 years, I went to the Film Archive, and as I said yesterday, it was the very beginning of the pandemic, but I was wrong. It was the beginning of the quarantine. So in 2020, March 16, that was my first day at home. But I really, after a few weeks, I really liked the situation because we had the time to develop our online content. So for the last 5 years, I worked with the Film Archive a lot on projects, and it was very easy to get engaged with the program. There were several projects about education, but for the last 2 years, we collected this knowledge, these experiences in one program, which is a Klassz program. Klassz in Hungarian means the short way of classical. As in international way, but it also means cool. And people use this word for the last 50 years, adults and children also. The program is built on 3 pillars. One of them is the online content. There are educational materials on the website, on the core films. The core film is about a film history. You can find out 416 articles about Hungarian movies, both, not just both, documentaries, animation, experimental films, and shorts. It's very important that we don't, we care about not just the feature films, but also documentaries. The second pillar are the events, which we started 1 year ago. And these events are for students. In the first 2 years, we focused on primary school students and secondary school students. And afterwards, we try to reach the university students and also the little kids from the preschool. And there were lots of events where we met the parents and also cinephiles. And the third pillar, of course, it's the films, the availability of the films. You can reach us in the screening room, in venues, in the Film Archive. The last 5 years, our screening room was closed. It was under construction, but we reopened it this year, and we are very happy about that because now we have a screening room and we can organize events at the Film Archive. And there's also an online platform where, for educational purposes, you can reach from our collection. So about the online content, these educational materials are developed by the Film Archive's colleagues, film history, and also teachers. So we developed it for 2 and 3 months. There are 50 educational materials on our website, and I will show you one of it. And these materials are organized organized according to subjects and ages and film titles, so the teachers can easily find what they are looking for. So this tantárgyak, it means subjects. The materials are linked to history, to literature, for visual culture, and also digital culture, and to theater, and for headmasters. So this is one of it. You can find out that the educational materials always have a GIF, so you can get a little thing about the film, that what is it about. This is a documentary film which was shot after the Second World War, The Lost Kids. From here you can know that what age group we are recommended, which are the links, the subject links. Oh! Sorry, I can't see it. I don't know what happened. I'm sorry. No, it's okay. Okay, then I go back and here is the website. Thanks for letting me know.
You need to put this on the screen?
Yeah, but okay. That's okay. I won't.
Oh, I can if you want to.
Yeah. Oh, and I went on. And you didn't know what she's talking about. And it's also important with these materials that they are based on experimental and documentary and shorts. Now it's on or not? No. Okay, in the materials, the first part is how to prepare for the film. While you are watching the film, what should you do? There are tasks and many questions about it. and make the... Oh, it's here. Super, thank you. And when we can, we cut out some short parts from the films. Okay, and when I go back, super. And there are also online games. These are linked with the educational materials, but for students, they can also play on the website if they would like. There are quizzes, memory games, and where to find their metamorphosis. And I will show you one example from here. The metamorphosis, that is our favorite. It's about that how from a storyboard a real frame array still can get. So this was the storyboard from Marcel Jankovic. And you can check how was it, what was he thinking about, and how is it now. And there are lots of games like this. How can I get back? Here. Okay, thanks. And online, you can get creative competitions. These are about films for young audience, and also there was the wide angle. Last year, the Hungarian film was 120 years old, and there was a big exhibition about that. And linked to that, we announced a creative competition, and also about Mephisto film, because last year it was 40 years old. About the events, we started the first event at the Volley of Arts. This is one of the biggest cultural festival in 3 little villages. And it was really great that in the first time we thought that it's a children program, but afterwards we realized that it's for everybody. Everybody liked the 35mm workshops and the proxinoscope and the zoetrope. And after you make a little animation, we give you a little things, memory cards and flip books. You can pick in the break, I took you some. But you can earn it only with an animation, so you cannot buy it. It's absolutely for films. And afterwards we went to many other festivals and had this interactive workshop. And Hungarian Film Day and the Budapest Classic Film Marathon is organized by the Film Archive and by the Film Institute. And we played with the kids and the adults there also. As I mentioned, there was the wide-angle exhibition, and there were lots of side programs. It was really great. For 1 year, we were preparing for that, and there were more than 45 different programs, camps, and tour guides, and we invited rock stars, young rock stars, to make a tour guide for the kids. And I mentioned that we have troubles how to engage the university students. We organized 5 lectures and about very specific topics, which we thought that they will be interested, but they weren't. Only the last, there were 5 lectures. The 5th was about censorship. That was the one they were interested. There were about 50 students there, but in the beginning about silent movies and like this, only 5 people came, and 3 of them were university students. And we don't know how to reach really them, so the marketing part is not okay, and I think our programming, so we need new things about this. And there were an event serial for teachers, for secondary and primary school teachers. We asked them to try out our educational materials. It was a 2-3 months online workshop for them. We were talking a lot in every week, and at the end we had a conference about it. They shared their experience, that how the educational materials, how the film worked. And we found out the kids, if you prepare very much well, them with enthusiastic teachers, they really loved the black and white, not the old, but the films, and they were not really interested in color. 5 more? Wow, I thought only 1. So the first session was for headmasters and literature teachers. There were 50 of them. And the next half year for visual culture and media teachers. Mostly they did a task with photographing, making videos, making GIFs about the films. And now we are in the third session. We work with history teachers. And it's very important that the materials were written by them, but also they are the one who try out, but not their own material, of course, but the others. And it can be a countrywide thing, so it's not just Budapest, because we always struggle that if Hungary is very much based on the capital, and you cannot reach very much the countryside, but with the quarantine, with the online content, we can reach, and it's really great. And there was also at the wide angle, we had a panel discussion with the teachers, and they shared their whole thoughts of the year of the pandemic, and how could they deal with the online content. And it's very important that these educational materials for both online and also when you are in the classroom, so you can use it both ways. Not all the tasks, but most of them were developed the way like this. The films are on a platform. Now it's more than 100 films, but we launched it with 100 films on Videotorium. Videotorium is very much like Vimeo, YouTube, but we can close it for educational purpose. So it's the free usage for educational purpose. One of them, they have to share it absolutely for free, and it have to be a closed system. And we started it in 2021 November, but before that there was a 1.5 year testing it. We asked schools to test it, 10 schools, and afterwards 100 schools, that we can get feedback before we launch it, and it worked really well. And these films are from our collection, from the National Film Assets, which means that these mostly the films before 1989 are owned by the Film Archive. We have the screening rights. But if we open it, we have to pay for the film use. But if it's a closed system, we can share it with educational institutes absolutely for free. In Hungary, there are more than 5,000 educational institutes, and this Videotorium works in 95% in the country. But the other 5% can join it whenever they want. It's absolutely free for them. They have to have a contract with the governmental agency for IT development. In Hungarian, it's more complicated, the KIFU. And via Diákháló, it's a student net, they can join the online system. And with EduID, I don't know if you know about EduID or EduGain. It's a very international thing, but in Hungary we started to use it last year. So it's not very common, but it's very, very practical. Something happened? Okay, these are our partners. It's very important for us that these associations, these teacher associations are 20, 30 years, very enthusiastic teachers. And our partners are book publishers, and Sahar Foundation is a Shoah Foundation partner in Hungary, and also museums. They give us space to introduce ourselves in many, many digital conferences, online conferences. And the Educational Authority helps us to reach the countryside. So we have, when we send them a newsletter, they send it out to the whole country, which is a big help, because our letters go to the spam usually, but from the Educational Authority, it many times reaches the schools. And we also work with cinemas and distributor companies, and the international thing that with the International Federation of Film Archive, FIAF, and the French Institute in Budapest and Deutsches Film Institute. So we try to get engaged, and as you mentioned, the Cinemini, we would like to. Not one? So this year we were introduced by the cinema. So they introduced us the Cinemini project, and we would like to join next year because we don't have a program for little kids. And our new projects that we would love to launch film clubs for university students and also for teachers and for little kids, and which is. I hope we can start it in September to make international extension of Videotorium, so people can reach with EduID or EduGain our films for educational purposes, because it's worldwide. Now we have technical and of course legal issues about that, but maybe in September we can start it. And we communicate with the teachers absolutely in person, on phone and email, a lot, and it's very important. And also there's a Facebook page for the film archive. When we post educational materials, nobody cares about that. So, wow, I did something. Here. So, and the other thing is a newsletter. It's okay now. I'm in the last 10 seconds. So thank you very much for your attention, and please pick some cards and flip books at the break. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Natália Ostrihoňová, and I'm a cinema manager at a small cinema called Kino Film Europe, which is located in Bratislava, Slovakia. And I'm here to tell you something about our new cycle while focusing on reaching the next generation through awareness and awareness raising and interesting content. So at first I would like to introduce this cycle a little. It is called Grovkin Biograph. It's pretty new. We only started on April. And there's actually a very basic idea behind it. We joined forces with Slovak theater director, performer, author, and drag queen, and actually a lot of other things in one person. But most importantly for us, a huge cinephile. His name is Tomáš Procházka. His drag name is Grovka. He's sometimes in drag, sometimes he doesn't, but it's always a lot of fun. And we basically relying on his good taste. So every month since April he chooses one movie, and he's always preparing an introduction, sometimes a discussion, or we come up with some other added value together. Needless to say, this wasn't my idea to start this initiative. It was my boss who came up with this. But I think that I can talk about the reasons why we decided to do it for the whole cinema, and that's why. Because I know that we weren't the only one who was facing a huge decline of number of visitors during the COVID and after the COVID period. So we just wanted to say, to somehow say people that we are still here and we have something new and fresh. And the reason why we chose to do it with Tomáš is that we are his huge fans. We like what he's doing, and we think that he has a great potential to attract young people and also marginalized groups. So when we were preparing for the very first evening, we wanted to make something big and really visible. So we chose Julia de Cornau, a French director, and we screened her movie Titane, which she with which she won the Palme d'Or last year. But we also screened her first feature movie, Row, and I think that this maybe was a little big slice for everyone for the beginning. So it didn't work as we expected, and. Yeah, we should have closed the evening with a party with DJ and drinks and everything, but we have to cancel this because a lack of interest, unfortunately. So it was a little bit demotivating because we did, in my opinion, a huge campaign. We were boosting it on our social medias. We also printed special flyers, which we distributed to a lot of Bratislava's pubs and bars and bookstores and basically all the good places where we think we can reach the right audience. But yeah, it didn't work. And by right audience, I mean specifically young queer people, young queer community, and also people who are interested in queer culture. And that's basically queer people and women in the age from 20 to 35 maybe. Yeah, but the outcome was not very optimistic. So the next time it was actually the last time we decided to combine our two events, which was Grovkin Biograph and also our other event, which we called Cries and Whispers of Ingmar Bergman. So we basically screened all his movies, and for this event we chose the movie Persona. And even though we decided to not invest to boosting or any big campaign, it was pretty successful. And I think that it was maybe because, on one hand, because of the movie, but also because Tomáš Procházka was directed this movie for a theater. And it was pretty successful in Slovakia. So yeah. It was more successful, but actually, from looking at the audience, I think it was exactly the types that we also were expecting the first time. But I think that maybe Bergman is just more popular than Tite. Okay. Yeah. So to sum it up, this cycle didn't meet our expectations yet. We none of our investment returned yet, and we are still only trying to get the audience on board. But I don't want to be pessimistic about it because it's still a very new project, and also we have to be realistic because Slovakia only went through the last big wave of COVID on March, and we started this on April. So people are still not very trusting, and it's very hard to get to them. But I think and hope that we may be on the right path here, and that it's gonna only get better from now. So I think that it was very quick, but this is it. That's the end. Thank you.
Thank you.